Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're here for our second budget workshop, and I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:02. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Cummings, and if you can kind of just list the areas that we're going to talk about tonight, and then school committee members, if you have any questions throughout, don't hesitate to ask any questions throughout the meeting tonight.
Great, thanks, Tammy. So this evening is, while last week was really about our schools and our student programs, tonight is about infrastructure and support types of programs. And so we have technology, transportation, facilities, and the capital improvement plan this evening. Before we will begin with technology, before we get going, I do want to make sure I'm addressing one or two questions that I received from the committee between our last workshop and tonight. They mainly had to do with CTE funding. So I just want to make sure we are all kind of clear how we fund our CTE programs. So first of all, our CTE program at the high school is primarily for Narragansett students. The vast majority of students who are in our 5 programs are from Narragansett. We do have 58 students from across all 4 grades that are distributed within our CTE programs that are filling seats that would otherwise go empty. And so we would be running the classes anyway, but because we have our CTE students in there, we receive tuition for those students to fill seats that would otherwise not be filled. So we are not increasing class sizes, nor are we adding staff for our CTE programs. These are seats that would be, quite honestly, not filled at all, right? And so it's to our advantage to have students come in from other towns because they're attracted to the quality of our programs and the quality of our schools. You know, in addition, we also receive about $100,000 in grants to support our CTE programs, and that also offsets program costs and those types of things. And that comes from categorical money and Perkins money, and so that has continued to increase every year as the quality of our programs continues to increase. I think the important thing to look at also when you're thinking about tuition into our programs, first of all, we're not adding staff in order to have those students, so that's an important piece. Second of all, the exact tuition money is lower than per pupils would be in any given town, because it doesn't include things like transportation or other federal costs. And so you're just getting the base cost of local contribution and state aid, and that's what follows the students. The sending district is responsible for transporting the student, so that is not an additional cost to Narragansett. So I hope that answers some of your questions, but again, you know, we are not adding costs or adding programs merely for out-of-district students. They are programs that benefit Narragansett students that regional students are able to take advantage of through the CTE kind of cross-district programs. Okay, any questions, further questions I can answer about that? Nope. All right, awesome. So Julio, I'd like to have Julio come up and he can talk through our proposed technology budget.
Good evening. So this year is not a big budget change as far as an increase for the overall technology budget. We're down, our budget will be down about $150,000 compared to last year, and that's because every year we kind of focus on 1 or 2 big projects that we try to accomplish. And last year was the wireless infrastructure. We replaced our entire wireless infrastructure in all 3 schools in central office, switched it over to a new vendor, and we did that all in-house. So the total cost was about $150,000, but we were able to actually, that was all under E-rate, so we were able to get $60,000 back. So that $150,000 was able to come out of my budget, and this year's big projects are actually coming out of capital funds and out of some funds from this year. So I'll kind of review those. So our big Our big project for this summer is a new phone system, but this has been planned out in capital funds. So what we're going to do is it's an original phone system that's probably 35 years old at the middle school and the high school. Whenever they were built, it's an old analog system. We did some work to it about 15 years ago to bring it up to spec, but now it's way behind. So Steve and I kind of worked collaboratively on this because it's a big project, because it's obviously phones, but we also want to incorporate paging and emergency management in it. So we actually went out to bid for it last year, but it came back, the bid, we only had one response, and it was $1 million. So we didn't think that was fiscally responsible, and we thought it was overpriced. So what we're doing is we're gonna do this project in 2 years, so actually 3 years. So last year we did the wiring for all of the project. This summer we're gonna focus on the phone system. So we are putting in an entire phone system, strictly IP based. It's called Fortinet FortiVoice. We've already have our first PBX in that we've started to configure and work on, but it's a huge task this summer. So we're trying to get up to speed with as much as we can, get as much of the configuration done. I'm actually going to be coming to the next school committee meeting to work on purchasing for the PBXs, the phones, so we can get everything in-house ready to go as soon as school is done. So that's not a big technology budget item, but it is a labor item within our district. So overall, though, for just the phone piece, if we looked at the RFP, the phone portion of it was about $300,000 to $350,000, and we're going to be able to do that in-house for under $100,000. So it's a significant savings. It's a significant chunk of our summer, but it's what we need to do to be fiscally responsible and get a good system in as well. The other item that I have added is last year I told you we did all of the wireless. We do have a couple of spots that we're just going to address. So it's just purchasing of 4 additional access points, and they're about $4,100, but they're also E-rate eligible. So let me just back up for a second and speak about E-rate. E-rate, there's 2 categories to it. There's category 1, which is your internet. So we get subsidized for that. We're currently at 40%, but because of the free and reduced lunch numbers going up, we'll be at 50%. So category 2
Julio, could you just back up and give it a little bit more? So E-rate is a federal program
Sorry.
that subsidizes our technology purchases.
Sorry, thank you. So category 2 deals more with hardware, so it will deal more with like wireless access, that type of thing. So we were able to get we'll be able to get 50% back on this purchase. So those 4 additional, we will only have to pay about $2,000 for. And the nice thing is category 2 has a 3-year budget. We only have $7,000 remaining on this year's budget, but next year it resets. So the next year, I will be coming and probably looking at switches, but switches, anything we buy will be at 50% discount, which is huge for the district. The 2 other items on there at the district level are Ninja One for patch management, for primarily our Windows systems, our servers, and applications that run on our Windows system. It just makes it so much easier. We were using WSUS, but it's a headache, doesn't work well. This really streamlines the process, and with cybersecurity, we want those systems patched constantly. And the other one is Sophos encryption. So the nice thing about Sophos encryption, we have 2FA on everything we have, but the thing that Sophos encryption will do is if any of our devices are stolen, lost, someone cannot just pull the hard drive, put it into something else, and open it up. It's fully encrypted. So it's done automatically, and we can manage it through Sophos. And those are not big ticket items. That Sophos is only $2,500, but for that level of protection, it's great. The other things, these are kind of, you'll see in all 3 schools, is the Chromebook. So like I've said in the past, we really, instead of coming to school committee and asking for buying Chromebooks for an entire school at once, we've really set up a good schedule, and it's in the handout there, where we purchase for students when they enter 1st grade, they keep it for 4 years. When they get to the middle school, they we purchase for 5th grade, they keep it for 4 years. 9th grade, they keep it for 4 years. It really helps us keep a good schedule. We have new devices, students have new devices all the time, and it really helps budgeting because we're not coming and asking for huge amounts. We can project costs, and it's basically on the enrollment numbers. Those other 3 items at the elementary school, Pebble Go, Brain Pop, and Ed Puzzle, those are just software platforms that the principal and the teachers have requested. Brain Pop they currently use, but they use Brain Pop Junior, which only goes to 3rd grade, so the teachers at 4th grade really want it. So it's a different product because of the grade level. And Ed Puzzle and Pebble Go are 2 that the teachers seem to love. We've piloted with them, so we're going to actually purchase those. Middle school, the other item is for teacher laptops. So same type of thing with the student Chromebook schedules. We have a schedule for replacing teacher devices, and it's in that handout as well. So this year we're coming up on the middle school, so we'll be purchasing those for next year, for the following year, because we're a year ahead on everything. So it will be MPS teachers. This current year we will be doing staff and administrator secretaries. And then the last 2 items at the high school, this is another big one that's not technically in my upcoming budget, but it's a lot of labor work for us this summer, is that new high school computer lab. Mr. Fiore spoke about it last meeting. So it's really going to be, we really took our time with this and thought about it, and we had our technology coach go out and really found a great setup in Smithfield that really was perfect for what they were looking for. So it's basically going to be, at the front, you'll have a 86-inch Promethean active panel touchscreen, and then there'll be 6 workstations, but each bay of 6 has 4 computers, a 4-table setup with a computer up above, so that, and it will have a HDMI switching, so any of the 4 students can show their work up there, work collaboratively, but at the same time, at the teacher station, the teacher can display their device to all of the screens at the same time. And there'll be new computers in there, there'll be the TVs, there'll be the HDMI switching. It's going to be a great little setup for that room. And then they'll have room for the robotics, and they'll have room for the Cisco equipment as well. And then the last item on there is vocabulary.com. We have the English department at the high school piloting it right now, and they absolutely love it. One of the features that they love about it is you can, if you're reading a particular book in class, you can input that book and it gives you the certain vocabulary that you will need to know, and it will quiz the students on it so that when they're getting to that reading in that book, they're already familiar with the vocabulary. So that, in a nutshell, is my budget for next year. If you have any questions, happy to answer those. It's pretty straightforward this year because of the capital funds paying for the phone system and funds paying for the computer lab. So that's why our overall technology budget's down this year.
Yeah, I have a question
Sure.
on our handout for the interactive display plan. And I noticed from the school year 2017, 2018
Yep.
through school year 2031, 32, there's no purchases for the peer school.
Correct. So what happened was in 13, 14, and I know Tammy remembers, I think you were here as well, Diane. We had sort of a pool of money at the end of the year that we could spend. So instead of doing each year like 10 or 12 each year like we have proposed, we were able to buy them all at once. And the same thing happened in 22, 23 where we had that pool of funds. So we purchased for that entire school. So in years 23, 24, and 24, 25, those would have been split up basically like 12, 12, 12 at the middle school. But because we bought them all in one year, we didn't have to buy any. So that next year, is when I will come back and ask for that, because we have a 10-year life cycle on those active panels, and they've held up very well. So next year, I will come back and we'll start on that high school replacement of the active panels that are now going to be 10 years old. So that's where that gap is, or else 23, 24, and 24, 25 would have had some middle school ones. But we were fortunate enough to do them all at once.
So I just,
And,
go ahead, Pete.
sorry, and Julio, my recollection is that was through the federal ESSA funds, right?
Yes,
Because that was an
that's correct.
eligible purchase
Yep.
based on the COVID money that we got.
Correct.
So I just have a quick comment, and then the same question I have for you that I had for the principals that I'll have for everyone else. So the comment first is just really appreciate your long-term planning.
Yep.
And, you know, for the longest time, that's what one of the many things I've always been impressed about. It's not just what do we need for next year, it's what do we need in 2 years and 4 years and 5 years, and then giving us the historical kind of backwards mapping is super helpful. So the information is always very succinct, very easy to understand, but having that historical, like, 10-year piece, where were we, where are we going? Like, I really appreciate that. So
you.
I'm very supportive of all that stuff. And I'm going to guess the answer is no, because of your long-term strategic planning. But, you know, my question is, you've got a very well-thought-out plan. Is there anything at all that you really were on the fence about whether to push off for next year? Big, small, if you're like, ooh, I wish that we could have done this in this year, in addition to what you're presenting.
No, to be honest with you, Dr. Cummings and the school committee has been very supportive of all our initiatives, you know, throughout the years, so we're not in a super need. So there's nothing, I'll support whatever the schools need, and I'll pass on this year for any requests.
Yeah, because it's all mapped out.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
we know exactly what you want in what years, so.
Yeah, and it would have been putting things towards the high school computer lab, but we have some CTE categorical funds that are gonna fund a lot of that remaining from last year and this year, so that funds a big chunk of that, so that kind of takes care of my ask.
Great. Do any other school committee members have any other technology questions? Justin?
Yeah, no, not so much a question as, because I've been on the technology subcommittee for a very long time, and like, to highlight everything that you've said, like, we've really looked at this not just as a 1 year, but as multi-years.
Yep.
And that allows us to, you mentioned you needed 4 more access points. Over the last 2 years, I believe you redid all of our access points.
Every
What-
single one.
Which was, in-house cost, same with the telephones. And every time we do this, and every time it saves the town money.
Yep.
And not only that, but we were one of the few districts that had the ability when COVID happened to like really react, because we had all of our stuff already updated.
Yep.
So we are getting, this is really well funded. It should continue to remain well funded, and I'm very proud of it, so. that's
Thank you
really
very
just wanted
much,
to
yes.
emphasize.
And we do have our technology meeting next week, so that's where I'll review all of this, and then we do have a current 3-year plan, but we did not get to some items like this phone system. We were hoping to do it last year, it got pushed off, so we will probably extend the technology plan for 1 more year to finish up the items that we didn't finish in the 3-year project, and then move forward with a new plan the year after.
Yeah, I do appreciate all the work that you're doing in-house, too. It saves the town a tremendous amount of money, and I know that's not the easy route.
No, it's not, but it's the fiscal responsible route. It's especially now with some of these vendors and contractors, the amount of money they will throw out there just to see if they can get it. It's outrageous.
Yeah, we do appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And I'll also add, just I work in this area, like your decision to go with Ninja One over WSUS, actually Microsoft announced the retirement of that recently.
Yep.
So it's forced your hand to do
Yeah.
something, and
Yep.
you're ahead of the curve there.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I would concur. I've watched you guys in action. Always know. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Pete, if we go sequential, we're going to stick with the agenda and then to transportation next?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. All right, so I'd like Derek and Steve and MJ, are all of you coming? All right. And so let me welcome Derek, Steve, and MJ, who are transportation brain trust, and, we will go from there.
Good evening. So if you looked at the transportation budget, you'll notice that it's pretty flat and in some cases a little negative. We've made some substantial adjustments to it. Nothing exciting to talk about it, in that there's not a lot of changes in adding to the budget. So if you have specific questions, we could talk
So
about that.
if I could just give a little bit of perspective for the committee. And so for most districts, transportation is a spiraling and quite honestly oppressive cost for a couple of reasons. So one, the statewide transportation, which is designed to take students to out-of-district placements, is very, very expensive, thousands of dollars a day. And then two, bus contracts continue to go up every year. We are very fortunate because we own our own buses, and our drivers and our transportation management are employees of the district. We have lots of flexibility in terms of how we can design our transportation, and also lots of ability to reduce costs by kind of handling out-of-district transportation ourselves. And so, the committee has been really great about making sure that we have, well-maintained and functioning equipment. I would say the transportation department has done a nice job of being thoughtful about designing our routes to make sure that students are not on the bus for a super long time, right? But are able to kind of are as efficient as possible. The second thing I'll remind the committee of is that I think it's 3 years ago now, we reduced from 3 runs to 2 runs, right? And so that was, and we put high school and middle school on the same bus run, right? We've kind of had minimal issues with that, and so that was really, I think, a way to have some savings as we went forward. And finally, we are looking forward. There is some consideration at the legislature to allow vans of 10 rather than 8, and that would be helpful for us if that does happen in terms of cost savings and how we do transportation. There is also some talk at the legislature around reshaping transportation zones and making them a little bit smaller and a little bit more local, and that will also help us in our transportation budget. So our costs are contained internally. There are external factors that we don't control, where we are obligated to transport students out of district. But fortunately, they've done a great job of kind of keeping that under control. It is truly amazing when you look at the transportation budgets of other districts that we are flat this year.
And it's fortunate, we've been using a lot of vans. We do a lot of out-of-district, and we use under 8 passenger vans to do that. And that is extremely helpful from a fuel standpoint and staffing standpoint, so.
We continue to have a great partnership with the town. They do our transportation maintenance. They are really wonderful about it. And so, that's an important piece that was put in place before I was here. That was really a great cooperation with the town.
I just have 2 quick questions. On the Pierce School and the high school, can you tell me what the drive-it system is that we're going to?
Yeah, do you want to move on to that?
So
Okay.
we can move on. Any other questions about
Transportation?
Oh, I'm sorry, I
transportation?
jumped the gun.
Yep, no worries.
Excellent.
All right.
So,
Oh, just 2 quick small questions. One, I just want to thank your forward planning, especially with the van program, because I remember that when we jumped on that because I think there was a fear the state was going to phase those out like forever ago.
it was a little bit of a challenge early on, but.
Yeah, and now to hear that it's still paying dividends this far forward is great to hear.
Much more cost-effective and a lot safer to go to Pawtucket
Yes.
in a van than in a
And isn't a
full-size
giant
bus.
bus sending like a few
The
students.
state thought that they were gonna be phased out when they first came
Yeah.
in. The head of the school bus, commercial services at the TMP told me you better jump on this before we get rid of it. And now it's more popular than anything.
Yeah, I'm happy
Big
to.
companies have incorporated it, and it's really saved, the industry from staffing issues.
It really has, because when I talk to any of our school committee members, it's not their number 1 complaint, but it's close to the top, is we can't find bus drivers, and this budget keeps going up every year. So happy to see we don't have either of those problems here. So thank you.
Hopefully I forecasted correctly.
Yeah, I'd just like to say also, I've watched you guys forecast and do all that incredible magical work behind the scenes, and it's amazing. Thank you.
So on to facilities and operations.
So we want to do capital? I think we'll go to capital.
Yeah, we could go out of order. So let's do capital, and then we can talk about facilities in
Yeah.
relation to that. Okay?
So this is the proposed capital for this coming summer. These are the last of the approved projects from RIDE. So the drive-it system, Diane, is the top canopy of the building. It's called EVIS, or drive-it is the commercial brand that's on the building. So there's sections that are severely damaged from balls hitting it, lacrosse balls specifically, at the Pier School, and that's going to be extensively repaired, and then the whole canopy around the top will be cleaned and painted.
And then I had just one other question. What's the difference between the W1, W16 for the windows?
That's W1 through W16, so all the windows,
Location of the building, west wing.
west wing.
Oh, okay. I thought it had to
So
do
if
with
you
the
look,
quality of
they're all, they're the newest windows, and they're the worst condition. They've lost all their argon in the glass, so they're all foggy and not insulated now, so.
So what I'll add to the capital plan is, we are waiting for the results of the most recent kind of facility study that came from the state to highlight some pieces that we will need to do according to the state guidelines. Our reapplication for housing aid, which is the assistance we get from the state to maintain our buildings, right? So we will apply for our next 5-year cycle next year. And so we'll begin planning for that later this spring and over the summer. So as we start to talk about facilities and kind of the future of our facilities in Narragansett at our kind of summer planning sessions, one of the things that we will be talking about is our facilities, right? And that 5-year kind of housing aid application is a part of that discussion. What we're doing this year is continuing on the last study and kind of finalizing some of the things that they highlighted for us. I think a really important thing that Steve touched on, but I want to emphasize, is the HVAC units in the gym at the elementary school. I think that's really important. The world is getting warmer, right, over time. And so we still want students to be able to exercise. And so making sure that the climate in there is temperate enough for them to be able to exercise in that gym, even on a warm day, is important. Anything you want to add?
So it's a 2-phase program. The first phase is going to be cooling, heating with basically ductless air systems. But the system's built big enough to power what phase 2 will be, which is the energy recovery portion, which will be small rooftop units to do air exchanges within the space and energy recovery.
In the middle school, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be refurbishing some rooms. So while it's listed in your kind of capital plan as wallpaper replacement, it's much more than that, right?
Yes.
So it's really kind of taking the rooms, some older rooms in that building, and refurbishing the room so that it's more modern and able to be taught in a really effective way. Some of the rooms are a little dated there, so it's redoing the whiteboards and making it more into a thinking classrooms type of space as we go forward.
So additionally, that you'll be seeing that hopefully at the next school committee meeting is the interior. It's wallpaper. It's skim coating the walls. It's painting the rooms to a degree. Some ceilings. We're going to try to hit as many rooms as we can that have peeling wallpaper, which is the majority of them. So it's an extensive project. And then, at the high school, it's the drive-it system again with the canopy, just basically minor repair and painting. And electrical switchgear upgrades we're going to do panel retrofits. We're going to put new guts in old panel boxes. Saves a substantial amount of time and money, and we'll actually be able to get that completed during the summer. So those are all in the works.
So as a reminder, right, so the guideline that we use is town council had a resolution that asked us to use 3% of the equivalent of our budget on capital, right? And so right now we're at about 1.4 million for capital. You know, one of the things I would remind the committee of is that we've maintained our buildings over time because of that. And so because you have committed funds to make sure that our buildings are being properly maintained, and Steve and his crew have done a great job of that, we have not had to go out to bond. We have not had to have emergency kind of requests of the town to fix crumbling buildings, anything along those lines. You know, our buildings, as you know from being in them, are safe. They're pleasant to be in. They are great learning spaces. Our playscapes are, you know, well maintained, and we update them when we need to. You know, the fields are in great shape, and that's all part of the maintenance and maintenance work that Steve's division does, as well as investment from the capital plan, so we can continue to stay ahead of it, so that we don't allow things to fall apart. We want to be, you know, sensitive to and respectful of the investment of the community in those schools.
Any questions on the capital?
Not really a question, so that's why I want to go make sure I wasn't interrupting anyone. No, this is, I feel like I'm going to say this again, but I'm going to repeat what I said on the school buses. Like, there's districts right now that have been trying to pass bond measures to replace schools because they didn't do the maintenance. And it may seem silly that we're just like doing wallpaper, whatever, but like if it all adds up over the years, and then you get like an unsolvable problem. So this is we are doing well. This is a good look at what it means to have a good balanced budget, taking appropriate action. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about facilities and maintenance?
Facilities operations, again, we level funded it. It's a stretch some days, aging HVAC infrastructure and just the sheer number of units we've added over the last few years is a heavy lift some days when it's 9 degrees out. But I feel that the level funded budget of operations is highly manageable at this point, and we'll move forward unless we have a catastrophic issue that we'll be able to maintain the current operations budget.
And again, Steve and his crew does a great job. You know, Steve is often here. You know, he has every sort of alarm on his phone. So
I was just
along
complaining
with,
about that.
You know, right, exactly. Along with talking with me at 4:30 in the morning on potential snow days, you know, he's often here kind of checking the boilers if the alarm goes off. And so again, you know, I'm grateful to our custodians, our maintenance crew, to the work of Steve and his team, MJ and Derek, because really it is something that is top notch. And, you know, again, our buildings are not brand new, right? And so there's lots of work that goes into maintaining them. But they've done a great job of doing that, you know, with a reasonable budget, and we try to follow those guidelines for, you know, our capital investment every year.
If I could just add to Julio's presentation of the communication system. So there's the second phase of that, and so the total cost that was proposed was almost $1 million in the RFP. If we do both of those projects together with the notification and the telephone, we're saving close to $500,000 by Julio and I doing the work. So that's that, and it's a heavy lift.
Yeah, we really do appreciate that. I mean, having done it, I know it's not always fun work. I'm the one who did the, yeah.
Yeah. What are you up to this summer?
Well, I just heard how much it's worth.
Yeah, right. And it's a, you know, it's a pleasure working with Julio alongside him, being able to do these projects and save the money, because we hope in the future that it helps us with other projects.
Yeah, and our facilities too are not only used by the students, but they're used by the entire community. I've attended a lot of community events, you know, in our gymnasiums and other parts of our schools.
Did you have a question, Justin? Okay. Pete, I had a question. Where did we land with possible improvements for the high school library? Can you give an update on?
I can. So we
That.
can add on to that. So when Karen and I reviewed accounts from this year, we did have some savings in some of our orders. And so we can apply that to the high school request and supplement the donation from the PTOs so that they can do the whole library.
That's amazing. I would definitely really like to see that, just a whole 21st century facelift. It's such an important space, and it's just very outdated. So that's exciting to hear, because I was really hoping that we could get that in this year's budget.
We are able to do that. And again, you know, Karen and Alyssa do a great job at their bidding and those pieces. So sometimes things come in a little bit under budget. And when you combine enough of those things that come in under budget, sometimes you can fund an additional project without adding to the budget.
And that'll probably just, my closing question is the same thing. So is everything that you have in the budget this year, you're comfortable with that? Like, it's always that, geez, was there one other thing that you were hoping, you know, because sometimes it's like, we really need a special education minibus or a van, we really need something, but money is very tight and it didn't make the priority list. Is there anything else that is not in this year's budget?
I am completely comfortable with the budget, and I don't have any additional requests because the workload for this summer is very heavy. So the answer is not at this time.
Okay. Any questions at all from the school committee about capital, operations, facilities, transportation?
You feel comfortable you're going to have people for the summer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do some student hiring and we have
Because
a
you
good,
know
we have a,
they're not you guys.
yeah, we have a decent crew lined up. That project's gonna be mostly hands-on by Julio, myself,
Oh, I
and
figured,
his
yes.
crew, and maybe one or two of my crew. That's gonna be, that's a big project, so.
We'll bring some refreshments by.
I'm grateful because I've done one in the past of the same size, but I did it alone.
Well, we are appreciative.
Anything else before we turn it back over to Pete?
I'm good. I appreciate your support in all we do.
And we thank you. We're repeating our compliments, but it is very sincere, the long-term planning and the forward thinking and just focusing on maintaining and protecting our assets, exactly like I think Justin said, that we're not looking at like a $21 million bond like 20 years ago. So thank you.
Excellent.
All right, back to you, Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So the committee has had 2 workshops. You know, if there's no additional questions, I can kind of go over what the budget summary looks like and address some of the things that came up. So first of all, in the first meeting, you know, you were informed that we do have additional students on a wait list for preschool. So we can meet that need by shifting a position within the elementary school. And so, you know, again, we believe that we can handle the additional preschool by shifting an instructional position from an upper grade level down to preschool, right, in order to do that without our class sizes going above the contractual limit. So I think that's what I would advise for you all, to do that, and that way you can keep the budget within the original proposal.
So with that, just in very simple terms, we can add back the preschool teacher that we thought we were going to reduce as a budget neutral. It's just shifting a grade level,
Correct.
adding the preschool classroom to get kids off the wait list.
Correct. It will.
Budget neutral from
Correct.
last week.
Correct. So two, the other requests, we believe that we can handle within the current budget, both the PD and the librarian, or the library furniture. We do think we can do that. So I do want to talk about fund balance. So we are committing our full fund balance to this year, all right? And so again, the town council asks us to put 3% into capital, and then to hold 2% in reserve. We're actually holding a little bit less than 2% in reserve this year. And so we will commit our full fund balance into that. And so, again, as I talked with you all at my budget proposal, all right, what we're really looking at is, let me find the right piece of paper here. I'm sorry, let me back up 1 second. We also had one more slight cut to our state aid. And so, Karen, was that around $2,000?
Yeah, about $2,200.
Okay. So we had a slight cut of $2,200 to our state aid. And I'm going to look at yours because I can't find mine. And so where we are going to be right now is an overall budget increase of less than 1%. Right? And so if you think about that, salaries typically go up, although we have not yet negotiated our contracts for next year. If you think about salaries and benefits, they go up a significant amount every year, right? You have additional costs of supplies, you have additional costs of fuel, of electricity, of all those things. So when you heard Steve talking about things being level funded, right, that's really a cut because the cost of everything goes up, okay? And so where we are is at less than our overall increase to the budget from last year to this year will be $365,951, or an increase of 0.99%. I will say that it does require an ask of the town contribution to be closer to 3% at 2.9%. And so that's something that, will go forward to the town council, and the town council can talk about that, right? But again, I do believe that this is a well-designed budget. I appreciate your questions along the way. It is designed to be economical, right? To support reasonable class sizes and also to support our programs going forward.
I have a question for Karen about the reduction in state aid we've seen in the past couple years, like this year compared to the past couple years, and if that's something you wouldn't have in front of you now when we have our March school committee meeting. So for example, this year, going into next year's, the budget we're looking at right now, it's looking at a 13% deeper cut in state aid, so it's almost at $300,000. So the projection is our state aid is going to be reduced perhaps by $294,000. Do you know off the top of your head about how that compares to like last year or the year before? Because I feel like in some years we only lost $100,000 or $50,000, but I'm making some kind of guesses and assumptions. And if you're not sure, you can let us know in March. But off the top of your head, do you know how that? Are we getting a much deeper cut in state aid than like last year or 2 years ago?
I can actually answer that for you. So there are two factors there. So one is that the state education formula has been tweaked so that based on the relative wealth of a community, right? And so and then it's judged by property values. And so because we have very high property values in Narragansett, it doesn't necessarily account for the relative wealth of the population of the people that live here, right? But it does really base on that property value. So because of that, our factor is a little bit lower. Then you also add in, fewer students, and then you also add in the availability of high-cost special education aid. So the state only devotes a certain pool of money for high-cost special education aid. And so because of that, even though we're eligible for more, and in past years we have gotten more of that high-cost aid, the pool is only so big, and it's divided by the number of people that apply for it. And so because of that, that was reduced this year. We were reduced because of the high property values in town, and we were reduced because of the number of students. Do I anticipate it was not that way for the last couple of years because the state, since COVID, has held a hold harmless, and so we were maintained at the 2020 rate of state reimbursement. So this is really a correction year, and it's happening across the state. There are wide fluctuations. Some towns are losing millions, quite honestly, right? Others are gaining millions, and so it's really all over the place. There is a study group that is working at the legislature that is studying the funding formula and recommending some adjustments to that. There is some voice in there around accounting for, very inflated property values in certain areas of the state, particularly along coastal areas. And so we'll see where that goes.
So thank you for explaining the why and the factors, but like dollar amount, do you or Karen have a ballpark now, or can you tell us at the next meeting, like, so we're losing about $300,000. Do either of you know what we lost last year or the year before, or can
Well,
you
we
bring that to
didn't
us?
because we were in the hold harmless, right? So we didn't lose anything over the last 3 years, right? Or very small adjustments because it was the Rhode
Okay.
Island legislature decided not to cut any state aid.
Now I understand. You explained the why, but I missed so we were kind of being level funded with the state aid, being everybody was kind of in a stay put, held harmless.
Correct, and this is
So
a correction year.
it's the correction year, and for us, like you said, there's winners and losers, people gaining millions, losing millions, we're receiving anticipated 300,000 less. So I just think it's important for us as we talk about what our ask is with the town council and the town, for people to understand that we have been receiving, and we don't get a whole lot of state aid for our small district compared to like what an urban district that's much larger would get. But for us, $300,000 is a lot of money when we're talking about like our increase, everything else going up. So I just want to make sure that narrative is out there, that's a big change from the past couple years, that we are anticipated to receive $300,000 less from the state. And we don't get much money from them to begin with. That's a big chunk of money. It's 13% less state aid. So I just think,
Correct.
that's all.
And just as a reminder, when you look at all the municipalities across the state, as a percentage of the town budget, Narragansett is either the lowest or the second lowest kind of burden on a community in terms of percentage of the overall tax dollars. So, roughly 40% of the overall Narragansett budget goes to schools. When you look at surrounding towns in South County, it varies from kind of low 60s to high 70s in the towns around us. So, we are a small district. One of the things that I would, encourage people to look at and think about is that, per pupil, when you look at small districts, the highest per pupils across the whole state are in the small districts because we have so many unfunded mandates. And so if you go onto our website, we have right on our budget page the 15-page list of unfunded mandates for which we are responsible. And because we are responsible for those 15 pages of unfunded mandates, we're often, there's very little room for us from the regulatory space to make adjustments to our budget. And so, I understand that, having a small district, it can be really difficult, right, within a community to make choices around that. But I would argue that in terms of being a percentage of the town, the value of the school system, right, brings a lot to the town, and it is a proportionally very small part of the town budget.
Sorry, I interrupted you about
No
state aid.
problem.
You had a couple different points, and I interrupted with
No,
my state
no
aid
worries,
question.
you got me on my soapbox. Great, so for the committee, I guess I am asking you, are you in consensus for bringing this number forward for you to vote on in the March meeting? Or would you like for Karen and me to make any adjustments? And if so, what would those adjustments that you would hope for be?
I mean, we made our asks, I made the asks that I was interested in at the first meeting. So I think at this point, I'm pleased with what I'm seeing.
I agree, and then my ask again with the preschool was awesome. And then again, to be able to find money for the expansion of the library facilities is awesome. And all the hard work for these different departments to be able to streamline and level fund is amazing, so. Okay.
I would agree. For me, the big priorities were trying to get kids off the wait list for preschool and have high-quality early education opportunities for everyone who is interested in that. I was very interested in the furniture at the library at the high school. And then also the request for the PD was so nominal, but can have such a positive impact. So I'm pleased about that. And I think, overall, considering our projected loss with state aid and all of the other costs that are rising and increasing, I feel comfortable with it's a less than a 1% increase, 0.99, our request of the town, I think is fair and reasonable considering all the other expenses that are going up. So I'm very pleased. I will be voting yes in March, supporting the bottom line. I'm pleased that you were able to look at the big picture and find that preschool position by making another staffing switch by just still, meeting class sizes, but also it's, very reasonable class sizes. We're meeting the contractual limits, and we're not like at the tippity top, so, of the class sizes. So I'm very pleased, and I will be supporting this when we take our formal vote in March.
Well, I'm just pleased it's under 1%, because I think that's the lowest that I ever remember. So congratulations to Pete, Carol, Karen, and all the team.
So it sounds like we do not need to have a third budget workshop, because it doesn't seem like there's any big topics that the school committee has further discussion. And again, for our March school committee meeting, if you have any questions that come up before then, please email Pete directly and he can get the answers back to all of us, or give Pete a call. Pete, any closing comments or anything before we close out the budget workshop?
No, I would just say, first of all, thank you for your input. It's always important as representatives of the community to get your perspective on the budget. Second of all, I'm going to be going to various PTO meetings to talk about the budget, so I would encourage parents that have questions about the budget to attend their PTO meeting, or certainly to reach out to me. And I would also highly encourage people to come to the town council meeting when we present the budget. So I believe the date on that, I'm just looking really quickly, is going to be on, let me double check it that I have it correct. On March 24th, I will be kind of presenting to the town budget at the school committee. So I would encourage parents or members of the community that are interested in that to come to that town council meeting.
And if you and Lauren can get that out with some messaging to parents, because, I try to let parents know and residents, if there's only one meeting you could make it to, it's great to come to when you present to us in February, come to our budget workshop. The March one, when we vote, there's not hardly any detail to that, but the town council one is an important one to go to.
Right. And there is our whole budget in detail is on our website. So people, if they have questions about the budget, can go straight to the school system website. There is a button and a link for our budget, and the budget materials are there, both a detailed budget, budget summary, and all the presentations that have taken place.
So before we close, is there anyone in the audience that has any questions or comments for public comment? Okay. Hearing none, then, is there a motion to adjourn at 6:55?